Rush Limbaugh is a coward. Not because he got a deferment to avoid the draft, not even because he described a Purple Heart recipient from Iraq as one who would be described as a suicide bomber, and then whined because critics noted that he had compared Sergeant Brian McGuff to a suicide bomber, but because, in our third story on the countdown tonight, Rush Limbaugh is hiding behind his bosses, asking them to protect him from having an ad made by Sergeant McGuff and those Iraq War vets aired during his program on his home station in Palm Beach, Florida. The group Vote Vets aired this TV ad yesterday, the same day we spoke with the man you see there, Sergeant McGuff, in response to Limbaugh's claim that anti-war soldiers are phony soldiers. They produced a radio version of the ad designed to air during Limbaugh's program. Yesterday, WJNO in Palm Beach banned the ad from Limbaugh's show. Spokesman saying, quote, airing anti-Rush Limbaugh commercials during the Rush Limbaugh show would only conflict with the listeners who have chosen to listen to Rush Limbaugh. Making it official now, Limbaugh's fans must be actively protected from any opposing views. This despite Clear Channel's written defense of Limbaugh to Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid on Tuesday, which read, quote, the First Amendment gives every American the right to voice his or her opinion, no matter how unpopular. That right is one that I am sure you agree must be cherished and protected. Even more astonishingly, Limbaugh today responded to Sergeant McGuff's remarks on our program yesterday, still too afraid to have the sergeant on, but saying to him, quote, there's something I can do, and I'm in the process of doing it. If you buy time on my affiliates, we use your money to make money for my stations, so it's win-win. This public lie, after Limbaugh's own radio affiliate secretly denied the sergeant his right to buy airtime because Limbaugh and his listeners are too scared to hear opposing views, even from a man gravely wounded fighting their war. We turn once again in this matter to Rachel Maddow, whose program airs weeknights on Air America Radio. Rachel, thanks for your time.
Hi, Keith.
And we will note, as you have, that you too air on some Clear Channel stations. So we got that out of the way. Conservatives used to accuse the left of saying there's no such thing as absolute truth. Everything is relative, open to interpretation. Is that not the definition of what Limbaugh's doing here when his comparison between real and phony soldiers was undeniable and his reference to strapping on lies and sending someone out among people was just as clear?
Yeah, conservatives have made this case that there's an observable truth out there that conservatives can see and liberals think it's open to interpretation. And it's much the same line that Rush came up with when I was still in preschool and he started this whole right-wing talk radio thing. And when he realized that telling people that the world is lying to you and every other form of media is lying to you, but I will tell you the truth, he realized that that's a great way to run a cult. It's also a great way to run a talk radio empire. The question is whether or not that shtick, which he's had going my entire adult life now, whether that shtick survives when there is an observable truth, there is a tape, there is a transcript, and that truth does not comport with his denials.
And why, on the other end of this, I mean, we're talking about his responsibility. Where's the media's responsibility, the non-Limbaughian media, when it continues to use phrases like apparently or implied or seem to suggest when describing these remarks, when the transcript of both these incidents we're now talking about and the audio and the context are clear? There's no misinterpretation. He referred to what real soldiers were to him and what phony soldiers were to him, and he referred to the apparatus that goes involved in strapping on lies, in this case, rather than a bomb. But he described this man as the equivalent of a suicide bomber.
Right, but when people are reporting on it, they have to put in these allegedly open to interpretation. Some see it as him implying. I mean, this is another one of those stories of fake balance striking again, where there's this idea that there has to be two sides to each story. And in this case, the two sides are the observable truth that is on tape and of which there is a transcript, and then a guy lying about it. That isn't two sides to the story, but it has to be represented that way, as if his perspective on it is somehow equally true or equally valid.
I'm having a problem following one line of thought in this, though. Okay. On Tuesday, Clear Channel defended Limbaugh based on the premise of free speech. On Wednesday, the Clear Channel place in Palm Beach defended Limbaugh by denying others their free speech, even if they were willing to pay for their free speech on their station. Now today, Limbaugh encourages Sergeant McGuff to buy advertising time on his show. Even if I'm dealing with a reformed drug addict, this sounds still a little too strung out for me to follow. What is going on here? Do you know?
Well, I don't know for sure, but what it seems like to me is that it's an embarrassing situation he's been caught in, because part of his image is that he's this chest-thumping, say-it-to-my-face kind of guy, and now it's turned out that he has to be protected from people who would actually say it to his face, who would actually go on his program to disagree with him. You know, in the talk radio world, as much as I disagree with Rush Limbaugh, he's on a ton of stations, and he has a solid gold microphone, and he's supposed to be the grandpappy of the genre, and this just makes him seem like this sniveling, sad coward who has to be protected, even on his own show. It's very sad.
Lastly, I need to tap into your radio skills to interpret for me a clip from Limbaugh's program. Let's play this.
We have a montage of this morning and last night. We have Joe Scarborough of MSNBC, John Roberts of CNN, Willie Geist, MSNBC, somebody else on MSNBC, and Nora O'Donnell.
We're going to hear for the next 5 days how Rush Limbaugh called this guy a suicide bomber.
Limbaugh called this guy a suicide bomber.
Metaphor to say he's like a suicide bomber.
Comparing that soldier to a suicide bomber.
Essentially comparing him to a suicide bomber.
Now, the somebody else on MSNBC would be me, and you know, personally, I have to thank Limbaugh for not mentioning my name, because to me, anything that he says sounds profane. So I'm delighted if this is a new policy. But not to get too self-referential on this, Rachel. First it was O'Reilly, now it's Limbaugh. Is there some magical power released by mentioning my name and that they're afraid of? And if so, could somebody let me in on the secret? Because I have not been using it effectively for 47 years.
Yeah, no, I can't let you in on the secret, Keith, because the talk radio gods, they'll like revoke my fart sound effect or something. They'll take away all of my power in talk radio.
Oh, it's like a Voldemort thing. It's got to be. Rachel Maddow of Air America, great thanks as always, Rachel.
Thank you, Keith.